Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. I sense that we are about to have a really great Infocom show, finally 2 years after COVID, right? Last year was 50-50. This year, we all expect a really great show. So it's a pleasure having you all here in Orlando with us today. My name is Omer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Xyte, and I'm specifically excited to be here today with Brian, a special guest from Intel. I'll introduce you in a few more minutes. But I guess before we get started, we have a lot to talk about today, and I think it's a subject that is relevant for all of us, for device manufacturers, for OEMs, for channel partners, as well as for end users. Let's start with a quick introduction video, kind of get the right spirit. Bestseller on Netflix, if you guys are looking for that. Great. So, as I said before, there's a lot to talk about it, and I'm super excited about doing that specifically today at Infocom. I've been in this industry for over 26 years now, and I've seen that industry change from very large audio consoles to programmable DSPs by companies like Biamp and programmable control systems, and then moving from coax to category to now AV over IP. And I think we are about to experience another change in this industry that will span beyond that industry. And that change will affect all of us and how we do our business. Once again, system integrators, managed service providers, OEMs, of course, and the end users. And I think the best way to look at that is that I always like to say that we all we were paying for our water and electricity bills based on actual consumption. We don't buy the water company. We pay based on what we use for the last decades. And for the last 20 years or so, pretty much since the inception of Salesforce, we buy all of our software as a service. And obviously platform and infrastructure as a service, AWS and Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure and others, that has been the very foundation for all the technology we're familiar with in the last 15 years or so. We consume all of those as a service. And we buy all of our media as a service. We subscribe to Apple Music, we subscribe to Netflix, and even Peloton classes today we subscribe for. Today, you can even buy Michelin tiers, coffee services, and Rolls-Royce engines as a service. However, when you think about it, one main thing has not followed that trend yet, and at least not at a large scale. And this is how device manufacturers, and we look specifically at B2B device manufacturers for this conversation, how they conduct their business, how they're selling their devices. And we strongly believe that we are now on the cusp of that epic market transition, where device manufacturers' business will change and will move from one-time capital expense into cloud and services-centric business models. And if you think I might be crazy, which, makes sense maybe, I remind you that until 10 years ago or so, you used to go to the store down the street to buy a CD with Microsoft Office or Adobe, take it back to your computer, put it on a CD drive that you can't find any longer, and install that program you've purchased for one-time capital expense. And you cannot do that any longer. And the same thing happening today with hardware. And there are so many implications to this digital transformation that once again will touch all of us. And for that, I'm very, very excited and happy to invite Brian McCarson. Brian is the VP and GM of the NUC team at Intel. So Brian, please join me here. I think we have some interesting topics to discuss.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So for those of you who does not know, Brian made this trip specially from Phoenix
So thank you for coming over to Infocom.
Of course.
I've seen some NUC computers around the show floor already.
Yeah, I've been going booth to booth looking to see who's using Intel NUC. Sometimes they're hidden under the desks. Sometimes they're behind the panels, but they're there.
You're pretty much always there.
Yeah.
So, Brian, it's a pleasure having you today. And I don't think there's a need to introduce Intel, but it would be great if you can talk a little bit more about the CCG group at Intel, the NUC business that you manage around, how it's relevant to this industry and other industries.
Of course, yeah. So I've been at Intel about 23 years now, been in the industry 25 years. I'm the vice president at Intel, and I'm the general manager of the next unit of compute group. And while it's within our client business, we also support our network edge business as well. So we're really interested in everything from IoT endpoints all the way through client computing devices to embedded solutions that can help make everything from MRI machines run better to your neighborhood restaurant chain. Anything where there's compute that's needed at the edge and you need it to be enterprise grade, we want to be that solution provider. But there's a thing that's interesting about NUC, and it's one of the reasons why I happen to like Xyte so much. While we're, of course, maniacally obsessed with hardware, we're not maniacally obsessed with our brand. Intel NUC is one of the world's leading, most prolific mini PCs on the planet that hardly anybody's ever heard of, because it's not about us. It's about enterprise businesses and how we can go deploy for them the ultra reliable, ultra high performance computing that they need at the edge in a very small form factor at a really great price. And we white label most of our ingredients. So there's a lot of NUCs out there that you don't even know are NUCs. There's even large multinational corporations, the world's largest PC manufacturers, like to use us to build theirs and put their logo on it. What we're all about is improving the experiences of enterprises. And we believe that the hardware that we produce can really help enable that. And we want to be part of that transformation, the same transformation that we all saw in the cloud, where you've got Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent managing everybody's clouds in the world and just taking care of that. It's cloud as a service. We know the edge is going that direction too. And we want to be there at the forefront, trying to make that transition more seamless for enterprises. And we understand that as much as we're obsessed with hardware, that's not what most enterprises are obsessed with. Enterprises are obsessed with the value that they can provide to their customers. And so if we can make that easier for them and cheaper for them to go deliver fantastic experiences and prepare for future workloads, like artificial intelligence workloads, future consumption models like as a service, that's really where we want to be. So that's a little bit about me, about what we do at NUC, and why I'm excited to be talking about a company called Xyte.
So that's the verb, right? But so that's super interesting because, we had a meeting this morning already, and I thought that I think that the right, key to be successful with that service is to bundle correctly the hardware, the services, and the software, right? And I'm keen to hear from you. How do you see that future for the NUC business specifically, right? In this industry, once again, other industries, moving to as a service business model, when customers buy or subscribe based from their OpEx budgets versus their CapEx budgets and so on.
Yeah. So you all know the answer to this already, but I'm just going to prove the point. So we're going to make it interactive because I got to get you all pumped up in here. So show of hands, how many of you have mobile device? Yeah, of course, all of you. How many of you, when you went to go shop for that mobile device, walked into your Verizon, your AT&T store, or whatever, and said, I want to pay for the device outright. I want to write you a check for $900 or $1,000 right now to buy the device. Any of you? Okay, one person did. All right. So interesting. How many of you went in and said, you know what? I want to put my own operating system on that device. I don't care what you guys have. I just want the hardware, and I want to make my own applications and do that for my mobile phone. Nobody. But yet, when it comes to purchasing hardware for enterprises, the things that actually fuel it, even you walk into the Verizon store, that's not how they procure their hardware in the Verizon store to run the operation where they're giving that to consumers. They're
buying the box, figuring out what OS they want to put on, figuring out how they're going to procure it. And then what do you do with that box when it's done? So what the world has worked through in the mobile phone, smartphone area is how humans like to consume products. But enterprises haven't caught up with that at the edge. They've done it in the cloud. The cloud, we've all moved to that because it's scalable and it's easy, but we're not doing it at the edge fast enough. And that to me is a key breakthrough that we've got to get. But in order to make that successful, you have to have companies that are willing to say it's not about me. Part of the reason why it's hard to go do that is the company has to be willing to say, I just care about the experience, and pick your hardware. I'm going to make it easy for you to go procure that. When the hardware breaks, I'll replace it for you. When you're done with it and you need to have it recycled, I'll do that in a sustainable way. That's the direction the market's going. And so from a perspective of my own team and what we're trying to do is we're trying to enable that transformation by being able to offer what we call NUC as a service. So don't worry about the hardware, just get the services associated with it. But we're not capable of being that last mile. We're a B2B company, not a B2C. And so we need partners that are able to make that ecosystem flourish. And we are happy to be that enabling engine behind the scenes.
So I think you brought up some really great points, but let's touch on the last one. So you said that, you're B2B, and we, we're happy to be the technological infrastructure to enable that. But there's a big part for the channel partner, right? The system integrator, the reseller. How do you see them, playing? How do you see them adopting to these new business models?
Yeah. So if you think about a software vendor that has a new AI application, they want to be able to have digital security solutions that have people recognition, look for safety issues, quickly notify managers of companies what's going on. They don't care about the hardware. They just need whatever it's going to take at the edge to run their application well, and they want to be able to help enable a subscription service for those partners. The problem is that's not how people consume things. Companies don't say, I just want to go buy one application to go give me what I need, and then I'll go pick my OS, then I'll go pick my hardware, I'll go pick my camera, I'll go pick whatever, my network infrastructure. They really want something turnkey. If you're in the restaurant space, you really care about feeding people, right? That's what you're about. You're not about picking hardware. You just want to be able to deliver your value-added services faster. And so for the channel, I think what we're trying to do is just make it easier if you are an application provider, have a wide variety of solutions, and then just find a way that you can connect with a platform hardware as a service capability out to go deploy. If you need to connect into hyperscaler infrastructure, we want you to be able to pick the OS of choice. You want Windows IoT? Great. You want Azure Arc? Great. You want SUSE? Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we don't care. We try to make our systems run wonderfully on all of those, so you get the OS of choice. And you can use your network of choice as well, whether it's wired, whether it's wireless. We just try to make that as seamless as possible for partners, so they just don't have to stress about that endpoint, and they can focus more on the value-added services.
So in that sense, I would say that once again, from coffee machine to trucks company, the device, and a truck is an edge device in many ways, like an Intel NUC is, right? Or a coffee machine. The device now becomes an enabler to a much more advanced and ongoing service, right? Once again, this is the key, I think, as a service business model, because no one wants to buy, a chair as a service, right? Because it doesn't get updates, it doesn't change. It's always the same chair, right?
Yeah.
But when you get something that has either content or services or the software constantly being updated, like a Tesla car today, right? That's something you will subscribe for because we're getting a new value every day or every other month. So that's great. And the other thing is what we see with some channel partners is that on top of that, they're adding their own custom services, right? So they're adding their own managed services. So if my end user is care about the outcome, right? The last thing I want to care about is making sure that the system is up and running. And what I say about these kind of business models is that the greatest thing about partnering with Xyte in this case is that it's also create new recurring revenue opportunities and business model for the channel partners. We're essentially moving to be solution provider, right? Again, in some cases, from just moving boxes into adding their own value added solutions.
That's right. And see, but you need infrastructure to be able to do that seamlessly.
Right.
And right now it's hard. Right now it's like, okay, so previously I know that before Silicon Valley Bank had all sorts of issues, they were trying to look at ways that they could offer hardware as a service, subscription services, and financing options for companies. Because if you're a startup, do I really, do I want to go find $2 million, $3 million in funding just to go buy the hardware I need just to get my customers started? That creates a huge barrier to entry. But it's easy to say, I just want to onboard devices at $20 a month, $99 a month, $200 a month as I onboard customers. That's a scalable way to grow a business. And right now, I think the way cloud application developer market has grown is because essentially the cloud democratized high performance computing. You just buy the portion that you need, and as you grow your customer base, well, guess what? You pay more, but you don't have to go put all the upfront cost of building your own data center. And at the edge, I believe these platform as a service, hardware as a service offerings are going to do the exact same thing. I just buy what I need as I scale it. I ship it to my location. I can provision it remotely over the air. I can track that asset. I can look at the telemetry information and have analytics through a single pane of glass interface like what Xyte offers, and be able to manage 40 retail stores across a broad region or even internationally, and not spend all my time worrying about what's my hardware choice. But there's still unknowns. Mm-hmm. And this is a big factor that I think a lot of us get nervous about when we're trying to make choices, because I'm sure not a single person in this room isn't in awe of how quickly the AI market is moving. There's lots of hype associated with it too, of course. There's always a hype curve, but there are some really phenomenal things that are happening in AI right now. But that changes workloads. It changes your network traffic. It changes your computational resource requirements. And if you're subscribing to a hardware service and next month you realize there's an LLM I could be using right now to completely change the way my business runs, but I just procured $3 million of hardware, am I going to go throw that away to go upgrade that? Or am I going to be subscribed to that hardware and I just need to go in and say, hey, I know I'm paying $99 a month right now, but you've got to throw me some extra edge inference capabilities on this. Give me the $299 a month model, and quickly start to transition. That to me is going to be a massive change to the way enterprises at the edge can grow. And it's what gets me excited about what we do.
That agility and the option to choose to downscale or upscale for, once again, for the device manufacturer to take opportunities of upselling to customers. And you talked before about that, and maybe we'll touch about that sustainable customer relationship. But one of the problems I think in the current model, at least the most common, is that we ship a product, and the second it left the warehouse, we have no visibility, right? We don't know how it's being used. We don't have any relationship with the customer. There's no way to upsell or cross-sell services to a customer you don't know. And there's even no way for the customer to, like you just said, to ask for more, right? And when you think about it, we live in a connected world, but yet that display over here, whatever the OEM is, it's hidden, right? Samsung, LG, they lost complete touch with the display the second it left the warehouse, right? So I'm curious to hear how do you see data, right, started flowing in, changing that? How can you, based on this data, for example, design better products? How based on that data you can better support your customer?
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to, this problem's already been solved. It's already been solved. When you call AT&T or Sprint or whomever your provider is and say, I'm having an issue with this phone on my plan, or I need to update my apps. You don't go to the Verizon store to say, hey, my kid wants a new Angry Birds app. Can you install it on my phone? They don't roll trucks to your house when you have an issue. The consumers would never accept that. And this multi-trillion-dollar industry around smartphones has figured this out. It's managed services, it's over-the-air updates, it's containerized application management, really clear APIs, and the ability to, within seconds, go online, upgrade your services, have new things pushed. Oh, you want family tracking? Great. $7.99 a month. We'll show you where your kids are at school. You don't go back to the store to go do that. This is how humans want to consume software, applications, and services. And so embracing that and then just finding ways to use that as an adaptation for edge computing applications, I think, is what's really powerful in the market. But there's a couple of things that get enterprises worried. One thing that worries me and keeps me up at night is just worrying about security risks with connected infrastructure. And it's impossible to ignore the amount of ransomware hacking attempts that have happened. There's a lot of states in the world that use ransomware and security risks to fund their activities. And it's sanctioned at the highest levels of the government. I mean, there's some seriously bad actors out there looking for security vulnerabilities. So finding ways to do that the same way that we've done it with smartphones with you've got a MAC address, you've got a SIM card. Those things don't match, call doesn't go through. We have some of those same solutions, but we don't often deploy them. And so trying to make the world more aware that there are hardware-based root of trust that you can be using. There are immutable IDs that are fused into Intel's chip that are unique to that one device, and no other device on the planet has that. And the only way someone can spoof it is they have to have access to a $20 billion factory. It's a pretty high barrier of entry. So they have to make a $20 billion investment to want to get to your endpoints. There's cheaper ways to go after things than that. And so being able to utilize some of those security features to protect your endpoints, which are in much scarier places, right? Because lots of retail stores, workers coming and going, customers sometimes coming and going in those environments. You want to be able to know that your endpoints, your applications are being managed well. You want data coming off of those to be able to help understand how your business is running. But you definitely don't want to create vulnerabilities in your enterprise that are going to subject you to security risks, privacy risks, ransomware attacks, things like that.
Cool. Well, a few months ago when we met at Phoenix, Arizona, you talked about, I know you're very interested in that. Just the hardware, after 3, 4, 5 years, right? You need to swap the hardware sometimes. It's not just software, right? What do you see and how do you see the impact on that, on the environment? What do you see with the old hardware? What do you see, how that's going to play out?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that get me excited. I'm sure many of you have ordered online and buy a tube of toothpaste, have it delivered to your house, and it comes in a box like this big or whatever, just shaking around in there. The waste in packaging, the waste in shipping is really shameful. And there's much better ways that we could be doing that. The thing I love about Intel NUC computers, and that's why we are so small, is the amount of compute I/O features that you pack into a 4-inch by 4-inch computer is more powerful than what a 50-liter tower used to be able to do just a few years ago. So we invest all of our money, energy, and brilliant engineering resources in the power of small. So the amount, you can literally fit, let me see. So yeah, in a typical gaming tower, right now, you can fit 104 NUCs inside one typical gaming tower. And about 2 NUCs has about the same computing performance as a typical gaming tower right now. So we've put that much energy into using the smallest amount of materials possible, making it as lightweight as possible, as energy efficient as possible. Some of these things run in as little as like 15 watts. so less than an LED light bulb, but have AI inferencing capabilities at the edge. So all of our engineering goes into small, goes into efficient, so it's cheaper to ship. There's less packaging waste, there's less chassis waste, there's less printed circuit board waste, there's less metals that are used, but something I'm particularly proud of. So the NUC Group here, and I'm blessed to have one of the members of the NUC team right here in the front row as well. One of the most brilliant people you ever meet. Definitely talk to her about modular compute when you get a chance. But aside from that, the team has been focusing really heavily on trying to improve the sustainability of the products at end of life. So we've created when you're done with your NUC, send it back to us for free. We break it down into all of its components, recycle 99.5% by weight, every single component inside that NUC. So the solder gets repurposed and goes back to a solder manufacturer. All the metals get repurposed because it's ultra pure metal. It's much cheaper just to gather that out of a NUC than to try to harvest it and mine it out of the ground and then reuse that because it's already refined. So we're finding that we can feed the supply chain with used computer electronics to actually reduce the amount of mining and harvesting that's required as well, and keep 99.5% of NUCs out of landfills by weight, every individual component in there. And that's not like sometimes you have CEOs saying, by the year 2060, we will be carbon neutral or whatever, and they know they're going to be long retired at that point, or their kids are going to be retired at that point. That 99.5% was our stats last year. That's where we closed 2022 at. So we're not waiting for some 2030, 2040 goal to go do that. We're trying to do it now. And so the sustainability piece of that is part of the equation as well. And what we really want to be able to get to is you just don't have to stress about your edge computing solutions. If you need to upgrade it, and know with confidence you're getting the most sustainable product on the planet. Know that if you have to send it back, it can be either repaired, reused, or recycled. You're not going to be damaging the environment. And you're not going to be pulling power off the energy grid at such an intense rate. NVIDIA is a phenomenal company. I love what they do, but I mean, these are like mini fusion reactors in some cases, right? Consuming so much electricity to do what they do. We're at the opposite end of that spectrum. How much inference and AI can you get at the lowest power consumption possible? And we take pride in that. Now there's a place for NVIDIA GPUs. We use them in some of our products too because they are brilliant, but we're really trying to be as environmentally conscious and sustainable as possible, but try to help that in business models as well. And so that's why this partnership that we have with Xyte gets me so happy and excited. I already used it once, so it gets lame if I do it too much. Because I think that we have the ability to help enable enterprises to have easier experiences at the edge, faster deployments with less CapEx purchase cost, better insights into how their systems are running, and ultimately be able to have a full circular economy built into how they manage their businesses as well.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Great. So I know you have a flight to catch. So maybe last question. I'm curious, when you and your team evaluated a different solution to offer this new service, what are some of the core components you were looking for? Once again, in the infrastructure layer that will support you in making that transformation.
All right. So there's a really high barrier that you have to cross to even be considered as a partner for us, and it's called the add-a-line test. I have a 3-year-old. I will pull up an interface and see if she can intuitively find her way around it on a tablet. If my 3-year-old can get around there and click on things and not break it, then on a single pane of glass, then we're talking about something good. Now, I grew up in industrial automation, right, making Intel's fabs autonomous and things like that, and used to Unix interfaces and Fortran coding. I'm dating myself, but going way back. But the reality is businesses need to be able to have seamless experiences where any employee in an enterprise can be an IT professional. Any employee in an enterprise can say, oh, that system isn't working. I can see that. And then I can quarantine it if it's a security threat. I can notify someone that we need to replace it and upgrade it. It shouldn't take an electrical engineering degree to be able to understand what's happening in your enterprise. And so the first thing I look at when I'm dealing with any application provider is how intuitive is the interface, and can my daughter Adeline at the age of 3 navigate around it and understand kind of what's going on. And so it's passed the Adeline test when I was working with Xyte. So that was
some designers and front-end engineers in Israel will be very happy about.
Yeah, that's right. And the more effort you put into what's behind the scenes, the better the experience is for what's happening up front. And so that's something that we look for, the intuition of the interface. I've seen demos of people saying, look how quickly I can provision your device. It's just this nice, easy 27-step process, and I'll have your device up and running within 30 minutes. The kind of bar that I set for my team is you should be able to take it out of the package and be coding in 6 minutes. 6 minutes. So from the time you take it out to the time you're connected into cloud infrastructure and actually have applications running in your coding.
I know ChatGPT helped on that, right?
Yeah.
On your own.
That's right.
No cheats. Great. Anything else you want to add or share with us, Brian?
I would just say a couple of things. AI is going to be a really powerful tool for enterprises. But I think a lot of companies right now that I see are intimidated by what it takes to go deploy AI solutions. And they don't necessarily realize how much AI is in our daily lives. And it just hasn't been marketed that way. And there's this perception that you need to have a massive amount of computing to be able to deploy artificial intelligence. But yet, you play with a Snapchat filter that puts little goofy dog ears on your picture in real time. Guess what? That's a visual inference AI model. They just don't advertise it as that. We've been using these things for years. And yeah, a little smartphone that can last for 8 hours can run inference at the edge. So don't be as intimidated about deploying AI and what sort of crazy hardware requirements are needed. I think you'd be surprised how much you can run with a system that exists today with just the integrated computing, integrated visual processing engines that exist inside some of these systems. And regardless of what vendor you choose from a compute perspective, try to think about the energy efficiency you can gain. One of the things I worry about with this AI explosion is that people are going to do the same sort of terrible things that happened with Bitcoin mining and stuff like that, where people were consuming entire countries worth of electricity to mine Bitcoin. And it's like, what are we doing as a society? And this is how we're going to be using compute resources. So look for the most energy efficient way that you can go deploy things. It's going to be more cost effective for you. It's going to be better for the environment and improve business outcomes. So think about the sustainability in what you do. That's one thing I think is pretty important. And for anyone who's working in or with the European Union as well, something that I've been seeing is as more tenders are being issued, more contracts being written, over half now of every quote or bill of materials I'm seeing has a sustainability requirement in it now. And that the US hasn't caught up with that, and some of the Asia Pacific regions haven't caught up with that, but European Union is really setting the bar right now. And my guess is within a few years, 90% of bids are going to be required to say what's the sustainability standard of your products. So start thinking about this stuff now to make sure you're looking for what's the best business outcome at the lowest environmental impact.
We only have one globe to live on. Yeah. Brian, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody. And
thank you.